Previously on Back of the Backlog.
I mean, if you truly do care, then what the hell's going on?
You know, I found out that my friend, well, he died. Have you signed up for the contest? Travel the world for 4 months until May if you win.
Yeah, I want to try. I will probably win next month's game because, well, we both know it is definitely quite handy.
Yo, guys, did you know that Finn, apparently isn't coming in or something like that because he won a contest? He's in an island now for, months on end, apparently?
I thought he won the contest.
You know about this contest? What is it?
You know, the getaway package, where you get to travel the world for 4 months. I signed up, but I didn't get it.
How am I just hearing about this? Niflheim, you heard about this one?
No, I haven't. But you said he's on an island.
Yeah, he's on some island. Look at this.
Wow, beautiful. What island is that?
I don't know what island that is. It looks like every other island.
Every island looks the same. How many islands have you been on?
I don't know how many islands I've been on.
Well, been on so many that you lost count, huh? Rich bastard.
Man, I don't care what island he's on, how many I've been on. It's not the point. It's the fact that Finn is not here, dude, and he's not here, and he won't be here for quite a while.
Huh, guess we gotta do the show without him.
For now, yeah, but he's an integral host to just leave for months on end with no notice. I mean, contest or not, that's pretty insane.
I wonder how that will affect our ratings.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And not only that, but, he's an alien. He could get abducted, which is kind of ironic because, he's an alien, abduction and stuff like that,
Yes, I understand the irony of an alien being abducted.
Alright, sorry, wrong timing. But, for real, we just gotta keep going, we're down a host. But it's okay, don't worry about it. I'll keep you updated on this whole situation. But he's having fun for now, apparently. Hey, that's cool, but see what we could do. Let's just do our thing.
On backlog, been gone for way too long. On backlog, got so many games to play, dog. On backlog, Donkey Kong expands my dome. On backlog, me and Carlo been fucking since dawn. On backlog, did you know that Carlo wears thongs? On backlog, I really fucking hate this song. Yeah.
Anything happen while I was gone?
Yeah, the car got roomier.
Smart ass.
What is up, guys? It is Robert of Gaming with Me, and welcome to the 21st episode of Back at the Backlog, the series where we take a look at the games that I recently beat off my backlog. Today's episode is on the game Final Fantasy 15. Day 1 edition. I don't have a big history with the Final Fantasy franchise. In fact, the first game that I ever picked up in the franchise was Final Fantasy 15. And I know, don't throw shit at me. Someone had to start somewhere. And besides, I was always very interested in the series. A franchise in which every entry has different set of characters, settings, and actual gameplay mechanics sounds pretty great. I own Final Fantasy VI on the Super Nintendo Mini and also Final Fantasy X, but I do indeed want to get more of them. There'll be a decent amount on the backlog for sure. If you see from this cover, I did in fact buy this game the first day it came out. I played about 7 hours and was really enjoying what I played so much that I never beat it. That is, until now. I restarted the game on PlayStation 5, which makes it the first game I beat on my PS5. A PS4 game. Although, to be fair, I did finish Astro's Playroom, so I guess it's the first game that I beat on my PS5 that is not the pre-downloaded Astro's Playroom, a PS4 game. Final Fantasy 15 went through development hell. The game started development in 2006 as a PlayStation 3 title under the name Final Fantasy Versus 13. It was said to be a spin-off entry for Final Fantasy 13, which Square Enix was going all out with during the time. Trailers were released that showed a much darker tone than the final product. It was directed by Tetsuya Nomura, who is best known for the Kingdom Hearts games. Years of silence passed until E3 2013 brought back Versus 13, and at the end of the trailer it was revealed that Final Fantasy Versus 13 would be rebranded as the mainline Final Fantasy 15. Funny enough, 2013 is when they actually re-released Final Fantasy 14 due to its huge original failure. Yes, 15 was announced before 14 was truly complete. Square Enix, man, there's something. Director change. Now Hajime Tabata was the director. Platforms were changed to the 8th generation of consoles. Staff was shuffled around. Content was changed. But finally, 3 more years later, the game was finally released. Final Fantasy 15 was released on November 29, 2016 for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. There were also PC and Stadia versions released later on too. The game was developed by Square Enix Business Division 2 and published by Square Enix. Now, was a 13-year wait worth it? Well, that specific question isn't quite for me to answer, but let's talk about it regardless. Now, the story is pretty big. To get the tiniest of details and backstory, Square even made a movie called Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15 and an animated series called Brotherhood Final Fantasy 15. I didn't watch either of them, but I am curious to watch them. Maybe one day. The story is set on the planet Eos. You join the characters of Prince Noctis, Gladio, Prompto, and Ignis. They set out to Alticia, the place where Noctis will be getting married to Luna Freya. Although the sweet marriage adventure is cut short when Noctis' land is attacked. King Regis, aka Noctis' father, is killed, and the crystal, this giant, crystal that apparently stops demons and shit, is stolen. So Noctis and the gang must go and collect royal arms, which are magical weapons from previous kings, to rescue the crystal and reclaim the throne. There's a ton more story beats and side plots that occur that I'll talk about later. I will say that I did really enjoy this story, or at least I really enjoyed the characters. The story can be confusing later on, but this initial setup is really solid. The CG cutscenes look fucking insane with hyper-realistic visuals.
Wait, it was CG?
Yeah, it was CG.
I actually thought they had real actors.
Really? They didn't look that real. I mean, like, they look real, but not like real.
Was really real to me.
Really?
Really.
Alright. The in-game cutscenes also look fantastic because this game overall is just gorgeous. From different world designs to character models, pretty much everything looks top-notch. The start of Chapter 1 introduces you perfectly to what the game is about. From the immediate chemistry of our 4 heroes, to the introduction of the Regalia, the car you drive, to the open world of Lucius, it perfectly encapsulates what Final Fantasy 15 is. The world of Lucius is a fantasy rooted in reality. Stuff like the car you drive in needs gas. Yes, you have to refill the tank at gas stations, which is the first area you were in. Now that may sound annoying, but it is super cheap and quick, and honestly I never ran out of gas once. It's just a thing that is in the game. Driving in this game though is pretty pointless. You're tied to your lane on the road and you can't actually go off-road. It's really just used to get from one point to another. In this case, I always had Ignis drive, which means I don't do anything. You can't fast travel unless you've already been to a location, so having the car automatically drive means you do completely nothing. There were a decent amount of times in the early hours where I was just on my phone because, well, nothing was going on. That's a problem in the beginning hours until fast travel becomes more readily available. Once fast travel is at most places, then that problem went away. If you had full control of the vehicle, then I don't think this would have ever been a problem. Another way of transportation are the incredible chocobos. These are animals that are main staples of the Final Fantasy series. Riding one around town is a blast. It's just you and your buddies traveling the world on a massive bird-like creature. It definitely puts a smile to my face. The world can seem a bit basic for the most part. It's a lot of grassy plains, dry deserts, and a whole lot of gas stations. That was all at first glance though. During the journey, you could discover the bustling town of Instalment, which is essentially the main town in the open world. Hidden in a ton of areas are dungeons. Dungeons are great and vary in difficulty. Dungeons can be in a forest-like area that leads to a massive monster match to old temple-like ruins. You never really know when you end up in a dungeon. Completing a dungeon can be super rewarding, as they'll likely have one of the Royal Arms weapons. There are enemy bases all over the place that you can sneak around in with troops and giant mechs to verse. I think it's a solid open world that could have been better with perhaps more towns or different ecosystems above ground. Overall though, there are plenty of locations I'll always remember the music of or the people there. The second half of the game becomes more linear and takes you to a variety of locations that I do wish I could have stayed at for longer. The world of course has wildlife to absolutely kill, annihilate, murder everything in your path for, experience. Which obviously you'll be getting a ton of experience through quests and combat. The interesting thing about experience is you don't automatically gain the experience. Instead, it is stored, and the only way to pretty much gain it is to sleep at inns or campsites. Now this may sound pointless, but this is done because different resting places have different experience multipliers. For instance, one inn may have a ×2 multiplier, so whatever experience you have, once you rest you'll get double the amount of experience you have stored, letting you level up your party quicker and more efficient. Because of this, leveling up honestly is really quick. It never is a grind, and I really appreciate that. In fact, I never grinded once throughout this entire game because I gained all my experience through quests or battles within the quest. It's also definitely because I played a ton of side quests. Yes, I played a lot of side quests. If you know me, I mostly only stick to the main stories in games because there are just too many games to play, and I also feel like a lot of the time the side content for games just aren't as entertaining as the main content. But there are exceptions that I feel handle side content really well. Final Fantasy 15 is one of them. I must have done about 70 or so side quests. Yeah, there were literal days that I just played side quests because I just couldn't get enough of the characters, combat, and locations. Now, many side quests can be considered just fetch quests or something, but I had fun because I feel characters ask you to go through a variety of scenarios within these quests, whether it be to take a photo of a location or plant some crops at a field. It's all genuinely fun, even if some sound basic. There are also plenty of monster hunts you can complete. Many of them have awesome boss battles and interesting locations that I would have never seen if it wasn't for those side quests. There's even special character side quests where Noctis and a party member will do something on their own that gets you closer to those characters. There's these collaboration quests too, quests that were apparently added later on via updates, but they are free and are really in depth in terms of cutscenes, dialogue, and location. One was for the mobile game Terra Wars. This legit added an entire new area that just looked absolutely gorgeous. This quest had Noctis join a character from Terra Wars named Sarah to help out these small Hiso creatures. It added like an hour of content and it was really impressive. It sold me on Terra Wars until I found out it was a mobile game and the fact that the game was shut down in 2020. That's a lot of development cost for a game that was going to be shut down. I'm glad it's in though. Another collaboration is with, well, Square themselves with the game Final Fantasy XIV. Yup, they're trying to get owners of the newest Final Fantasy to go back and buy the previous Final Fantasy. It sounds funny when you say it, but it makes sense given the fact that 14 is an online MMO that still gets new expansions to this day as of 2021. This was another cool quest though because they changed a lot of the HUD, enemies, and characters you meet to things from Final Fantasy XIV, I would assume. There's even a giant fat chocobo, and that, my friends, is awesome.
That's like me. I'm just a fat chocobo.
You don't actually think you're fat, do you?
I do?
What? Come on, you're not even round. If you're fat, I mean, what am I?
Fat.
You trying to say I look like that fat chocobo?
Yeah?
No, I actually don't look like that. Drucker, what do you think?
I agree with Niflheim.
What? You're fucking with me. I do not look like that round chocobo. We're gonna have to talk about that later. To top it off, there's even an epic boss battle at the end of the quest. It made me even more interested in Final Fantasy XIV, especially since I've heard so much praise for it. In essentially every quest, there's of course a ton of combat, which let's talk about the quite controversial combat. Final Fantasy 15 ditches the turn-based combat of previous Final Fantasy games for a more action-oriented style. I'll say right now, I prefer action games over turn-based games. I very much enjoy turn-based, but I do prefer action-focused combat more. While turn-based is more about strategy, action gives you the strategy and has you perform moves and dodges on your own set of skills and reflexes. Final Fantasy 15 doesn't truly give you full control of the action though. In fact, it kind of reminds me of a more simplified Xenoblade game. While in combat, you hold the button to have Noctis constantly swinging whatever weapon he's wielding. With the D-pad, you could change to one of 4 weapons or magic you have equipped. Based on the weapon, the speed at which it's used is varied. Holding down another button automatically dodges for you, but once held, your MP meter starts to drain, and once that's gone, then be prepared to either drink a potion that recovers MP or find a wall or high place where you can recover some because you definitely aren't dodging with no MP. There's also the perfect dodges where if you time your dodge right before you get hit, you'll be able to use a quick counter move. Another thing that uses MP is the badass warp striking. Lock onto enemies, and with this move you'll be able to throw your weapon and teleport to an enemy and deal some higher damage. It's fun, it's flashy, it's effective, and it also uses your MP. So you can't go crazy with it, but you can use it plenty of times before the MP bar runs out. The bar goes back up eventually, but it can take a while for sure. There's also the Armiger. Armiger? I don't know. A super powerful move that you get after collecting some of the royal arms. Its power gauge rarely pops up, but when it does, it can be huge against something like a boss. The other people in your party aren't just for the story. Ignis, Gladio, and Prompto are there to help in battle. Each of the party members are skilled with different sets of weapons. While you may not play as them, they are important as hell to survive. Every chance I got, I bought more powerful weapons for all 4 characters. During combat, a green bar called the technique bar on the side slowly rises, and when it reaches a certain point, you'll have the ability to tell one of the 3 party members to perform a special that does higher damage, and at the end, there's always a button prompt that when timed correctly can have Noctis follow up on the special. There's a whole menu where you can upgrade abilities for every character from combat to health, and one of them was whenever Noctis attacked, the tech bar would rise up slightly quicker. These special moves from party members can really change the pace of a battle from doing okay to dominating the enemy's ass. There's definitely some other things that if someone truly wanted to know the ins and outs of the combat, will enjoy themselves. For the most part though, I didn't go too crazy in depth with my setup as I was over leveled for the majority of the game. I do think that the combat can be a little bit too automated at times. Holding down a button to attack does remove button mashing, but holding down to automatically dodge is a bit excessive. Although this is coming from someone who did fall down many times, it's just I had so many potions to heal me that I feel I never truly got out of my comfort zone. However, later on in the game when bosses did catch up to my level, I was struggling hard and I used up so many of my potions. I didn't get a game over, I didn't die, but if it wasn't for me hoarding my potions, it would have been some brutal shit. Unfortunately, some areas don't have the greatest cameras though, as trees and bushes occasionally get in the way and that's just messy. Overall, the combat is a ton of fun and moves like warp striking alone is worth the visit. There's a couple of times that new people join your party which always change up the variety in terms of moves in the tech bar, which was awesome. One of the best parts about this adventure are the characters. Yes, Noctis is a prince. He doesn't look like one. I love it. Gladio always has his shirt open, showing to the world his abs and how jacked he is. I love it. Prompto wears like biker shit, I guess. Finger gloves. He's a photographer. I love it. Ignis has his hair up. He's always cooking, always wearing a suit. I love it. Yes, I've heard it a million times. You put them together and they look like a boy band. Guess what? I love it! The conversations, the chemistry these 4 have are some of the best in gaming I've played. I don't know the last time, if ever, I played a game with 4 characters that for the most part don't stop talking, and I enjoy it. Every conversation is like 4 friends just being friends, and I loved it. After quests, during quests, they'll talk about stuff that just happened, whether it be about the events that occurred or the last character they just ran into. There's plenty of funny moments with them joking with each other, like Prompto falling for Cindy and Aranea, which I mean, shit, can you blame him? As with any friendship, There's moments of tension and divide, conflicts and resolutions, and it's all handled really well. What's not handled as well though is this weird cup noodles ad placement. There's genuinely a whole quest dedicated to getting ingredients for cup noodles, and the characters sound like they're doing an ad read for a podcast or something.
After all, the shrimp they use in cup noodles was selected from over 60 varieties for their flavor and their shape. It's perfection, and some say you can't top that. But I say you never know if you never try. All that's left is to make our noodle dream a reality. First up, the ingredients.
Yeah, whatever you say.
While it's blatant product placement and it's weird, it also somehow does kind of work. One other weird thing in this game is the character model viewer. There's a menu where you could view every character model you run into in the game. Zoom in, zoom out, spin around, admire the details, I suppose. However, you oddly enough can't do anything with the female character models. That is both hilarious and sad. For one, the developers feel that people are gonna like zoom into Cindy's tits, I guess. But isn't that also weird because that means that the developers are thinking about Cindy's tits, right? And second of all, if that is maybe the case, how come you can't zoom in into any of these fully clothed models? It's so strange. It's such a minor thing they removed.
In order to find that out, that means you attempted, which proves the developers right.
Hold on. Who says I was zooming in on someone like Cindy?
That's the only way you found out.
I zoomed in on everything I could. Monsters, Gladio's abs, everything.
Sure.
Like you said, how would I know if I didn't try?
Okay, true. You got me.
See? Yep, alright. In the later half of the game, like I said earlier, it becomes more linear. The worlds in these chapters are incredible looking. The world of Altitia is great as it's also filled with its own quests and monster hunts, but eventually the giant Leviathan comes up, wrecks the city, and Noctis needs to stop it. This was an epic battle. I mean, look at this! Look at this! You can play this! In this battle, you are able to warp from broken building to broken building and slowly chip away at the absolute behemoth in front of you. It can sometimes get a little messy as to where you are, but it doesn't take away how memorable this boss fight was. Especially when Noctis gets full power and you are able to glide and break the Leviathan piece by piece. I mean, this type of epic boss battles just doesn't happen very often in games. I'm now going to talk about the final few chapters just to let you know. So during the whole Leviathan fight, Luna Freya, the childhood friend of Noctis' soon-to-be wife, is killed by Arden, the main villain of the game. He's seen throughout the entire journey, but the final chapters are where you see what he is made of. Not only that, but Ignis has become blind through this event. The group's morale is at an all-time low. Ignis stays a part of the group but now walks with a stick, and for a chapter, the group asks Noctis to constantly slow down if you end up going too far ahead. No one tries to bring up Ignis' blindness, and it's all sort of awkward in the group. Noctis is in a depressed state, as he just lost so much from his life. Gladio gets angry with Noctis, essentially showing his emotions toward the whole thing in a more aggressive way by telling him to think about Ignis. It's an interesting chapter that ends with Ignis telling the others he doesn't think his vision will ever come back, but that he will stick around and doesn't want them to slow down. All great emotion from every character in that moment. It's generally all really great with a pretty tough boss battle at the end of it. At this point, chapters begin to fly by, moving from one awesome location to another. It's a lot of places I wish I could have explored more, to be honest. The action pieces become really impressive, like warping from airship to airship above this train, taking out airships one by one and warping to the next one after one is blown up. It's absolutely fantastic, the scenarios they put these characters through. It's situations like these that I feel other games would make them cutscenes, but no, in Final Fantasy 15 you play these situations. Then comes the apparently controversial Chapter 13. In this chapter, Noctis is separated from Gladio and Ignis, and the game splits up into two routes. You can either play as Noctis or play as Gladio for a change. This wasn't actually in the game at release. Being able to play Gladios and Ignis' route was added months after. I played the original Noctis route, but I did go back after the game to play the other route. The original Noctis route is interesting because it plays like a horror action game with tight corridors, jump scares, and the villain Arden talking through speakers. I quite liked it. It added some variety to the gameplay and tone, and it gave you this super powerful ring that could take out enemies pretty easily. I understand why people may not care for it because it does slow down the game, but I don't mind it. Only negative is that it goes on for a bit too long for sure. We're talking like almost 2 hours. Being alone and separated from the group felt so isolated that when you actually reunite with them, it made it so great. The boss of this chapter also was the one that gave me the most trouble in the game, the one where I used so much of my potions. That boss was strong. Finally, the chapter ends off with Noctis finding the crystal and gets grabbed inside of it while Arden is saying something. For real, listen to this and just tell me that the mix just isn't awful.
Innocently the Savior who could cure the afflicted. His body would come to host myriad demons, and countless lives be spared. But a jealous king. But you should know that it was not given to me at birth.
You literally can't hear him. This is a pretty important part, I feel, and I legit have no clue what he is talking about because of the mix. So yeah, by this point, some of the story is pretty convoluted. Noctis is inside of the crystal and talks to this dude called Bahamut that tells Noctis that the only way to stop Arden and all the demons is by sacrificing himself. This has to happen because Arden, turns out, is immortal. Then he just kind of tosses him, and Noctis apparently goes into a 10-year hibernation to essentially charge up the ring to its full potential, and like 10 seconds later, boom, Noctis is 10 years older with a beard. I had to look up why there was a 10-year skip. I didn't know it was because of the ring. I had to look it up. So hey, weird story shit aside, the world is overrun by demons since no one could fight against Arden. It's really cool seeing this world fall apart. There's no happy daytime with the bros. It's all dark, gloomy, and dangerous. This one kid from 10 years ago is now, well, an adult, and drives Noctis to where the other three are staying. The conversation in that car was really interesting, hearing how they are still going in this depressing world. When Noctis reunites with the others and seeing them also 10 years older, put a smile on my goddamn face. Although no one seems to care where Noctis has been for 10 years, just that it's been 10 years. At this point, the final battle was right ahead, but I felt like I was under level since the last battle I got my ass kicked. Calling this dog named Umbra allows you to travel to past Lucius so you could go back to the open world and continue with side quests or whatever you like to do. It's an interesting way of going back to the normal world and game. Then I thought I'd do a lot of side quests. Like a lot of side quests. I played side quests for a few days until every character gathered up 101,000 XP. I then slept at a hotel that offered a ×3 multiplier. So yeah, 303,000 XP later, the group leveled up 11 times. Yes, I was definitely prepared for the final battle. After going through the city, you fight this guy named Ifrit. He's got fire everywhere, burning up the streets. But fuck that, we didn't level up for no reason. Beat his ass until a summon froze his ass. Then the four go up to the throne room where Noctis asks Prompto for his photo collection. You pick a photo from throughout the journey to take with Noctis as, well, we know it's not going to end very happy. In the throne room, Arden puts Gladio, Prompto, and Ignis down because he says,
"They have no place in this. The Battle of Kings."
Well, the two go outside and the final battle begins. One final duel. Winner takes the throne. Arden never stops moving in this battle. I had to constantly warp strike to catch up to him, which also meant I had a low MP bar very often, which also meant I was a punching bag very often. That was alright though, as I had a ton of potions. In fact, I had 26 of one that would revive me if I were to die. Arden had no clue who he was messing with. You can never be too prepared. At a certain point in his health, both go their full power and fight in the air like the Leviathan fight, although not as epic, chipping away at him until they drop to the ground, and Noctis deals the final few blows, one strike at a time until Arden is somewhat truly killed. Arden tells Noctis he will await for him in the beyond. Noctis has one last goodbye to the other three in a touching send-off in which Noctis tells the others,
Walk tall, my friends.
In what looks to be a super painful ritual, the previous kings give Noctis power to get him to the beyond and truly kill Arden in there. With what also looks to be an insanely painful sacrifice comes the end of Arden. All of that power to fully wipe out the immortal man. Both good and evil, gone. That is destiny fulfilled. Then, the credits roll. Cool enough, all the photos in the credits are photos taken throughout the journey, which is awesome. But then there's a post-credits scene. The four of them are sitting at a campfire, likely right before heading to Arden. It's quiet, and Noctis attempts to say something, but he can't get it off of his chest. Eventually, after some rocking back and forth, Noctis spits it out.
I've made my peace. Still, knowing this is it, and seeing you here now, it's more than I can take.
All four of them are just silent for a while, with tears rolling down, taking it all in. This is the end of the road for them. It ends with Noctis saying a line that will stay with me forever. It's a simple line, but it's a powerful one for what this game was all about.
You guys are the best.
Tears, man. Fucking tears. It's the movements, it's the delivery, it's the quiet nature of it all that really sold this scene. They captured friendship so perfectly in this game. From the countless conversations to just aimlessly driving around with the bros, it's a genuine, amazing accomplishment. Obviously, when or if you play it, you'll definitely be able to appreciate that aspect. More credits roll until one more post-credit scene pops up with the light coming back to the world and Noctis and Lunafreya being happily married in the afterlife with the photo you picked right before seeing Arden right on the side. An updated logo appears, and at that point it is truly the end of Final Fantasy XV. Final Fantasy XV was a fantastic game. So fantastic that I just did not want to stop playing. Oh no, I did what I rarely do, and that is buy the DLCs. Yeah, there's 4 DLCs that I bought for like $2.50 each, and they're fucking awesome. Each of the DLCs lets you play through a section of the story through another character's perspective, with each of them having these beautiful locations, cutscenes, and different gameplay styles. It's impressive. In episode Gladio, you see him in a different light, facing this ultimate boss from previous Final Fantasies, Gilgamesh, to prove he's a worthy guard for Noctis. In episode Prompto, it plays like a third-person shooter where you'll discover more about Prompto's past and how he feels about it. In episode Ignis, you'll play the time he actually went blind. This DLC was unbelievably great because it had a whole alternate ending to the story that did indeed make me cry. Then you have episode Arden, where you find out even more about his backstory, but admittedly, even though it was cool to play as him, it was my least favorite. If you play the game and enjoy it too, then I highly recommend the DLC too, as it is cheap and each one is about 2 hours long. I genuinely did not want to leave this world, and I won't, because one of these days I will go back to revisit the boys and do some more side quests in this world for sure. Overall, I'm going to give Final Fantasy XV a total bro road trip that I didn't want for it to end, but I guess to be fair, it doesn't really have to end since there's so many goddamn side quests. Out of 10. Final Fantasy XV was amazing. From the gameplay, to the world, to the characters, it's all just memorable. This is one of the games in the series so far that I just didn't want to stop playing. When it comes to this series, I set a timer for an hour or an hour and a half, depending on how much time I have, to play a game off the backlog or write a script for the game that I just finished off the backlog. Sometimes there are games that I just have so much fun with that I will play past the timer. And Final Fantasy XV consistently went past the timer, I will say that. And to me, that shows the success of a really fun adventure. I just had an amazing time with these guys. It genuinely captured the idea of friendship like I've never seen in a game. Speaking of friends, my good friend Terminator Juice actually sent me a message through PSN on December 3rd, 2016, asking me, how's Final Fantasy XV? Well, this year it'll be 5 years since that message, and well, here's your answer. I made this video for you because you wanted to know what I thought 5 years ago. It's not like I forgot or anything. Seriously, this was an awesome game with some flaws for sure, like I mentioned, but nothing major for me at all. I absolutely loved it. I'm looking forward to checking out other Final Fantasies. I know they are different from Final Fantasy 15, but that's why I am interested in checking them out. Thank you so much for watching. Share this around because these take so long to make. And this one especially is very, very lengthy. Imagine when we cover Persona 5. That's going to be a movie. Have you played Final Fantasy 15? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Final Fantasy 15 was one hell of a road trip, but it is officially out of the backlog.
I gotta tell you something that's going on behind the scenes.
What is it, Trucker?
Well, apparently, we're supposed to be getting some pay bonuses after every episode. Robert has been pocketing all of our bonuses, every single one of ours.
What? Where did you find that out? I mean, that doesn't sound like him at all.
It says so in our contract.
Well, I guess that makes sense because I've threw out my contract.
Don't worry, that's what I'm here to tell you. In fact, that's why I've been acting so strange lately. You know, I feel like, I'm not gonna put in my full effort if I'm not gonna get that full pay, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry if, I acted rude to you, but if I'm being honest, I thought you were all pocketing mine. But then I found out Robert was pocketing all of ours.
Oh my god, that makes so much sense. I feel so bad. I didn't know that you thought we were pocketing your money. Oh my god. What do we do now?
Only thing we can do. Stop showing up until he pays us.
I mean, I could talk to him about it. Maybe he didn't mean it.
I wouldn't do that if I were you. Like you said, you don't have the contract. You don't have the evidence. I do, but that's only mine. He could get away with it.
So you want me to just not say anything?
Precisely. Let him run to us. Just trust me, when we don't show up, he's gonna know. He's gonna know exactly why. So next month's game, it'll be his own. Fuck him.
I know we won't be here for next game, but what was the game again?
It was that, crystal one.